Welcome to the show, IB Nation Sports Talk up and rolling. It is Wednesday, along with Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Steyer. It's good to see you, my friend. It
Yes,
has
sir.
been about a week. Well, yeah, a week because we didn't even have a countdown show last week because it was by week number 2.
Well, and last Wednesday it was Jesse and me. So
that's right. So it's been more than a week, hasn't it?
for you and I, it's been
Forgot about that.
More than a week. Yeah,
it has.
It's because you know women's basketball kicking off and doing their thing, and men's team has a game tonight, and yeah, lots of fun going down.
I know it's it's crossover season with football and basketball officially crossing over right now. Like you said, the women started a couple of days ago. The men tip it off tonight. So it just November is November, man. And like this one feels slammed to me. I don't know. It's crazy.
I tend to agree with you on the slammed portion of November. But here we are, man. Like this is going to be a wild few months, frankly, because if Notre Dame does what they're supposed to do, you know, and then they get into the playoff, obviously that extends our jobs essentially for what we, you know, boots on the ground type of thing. Like we're always going to talk Notre Dame football on the podcast and all that kind of stuff. But like, you know, it kind of extends our boots on the ground part of it. And so we got November to win all the games. You've got basketball and you know, women's basketball. And then we've got men's and women's basketball to go see and cover and all of that.
Yeah.
And then I've got high school football, and that's winding down. And then once the season winds down for me, that's when the recruiting really like hypes up at that point. I mean, I'm sure you remember that because at the level that Jesse and Dylan are looking at, it's like once the college season's over, man, recruiting really hypes up. So it's going to be an interesting few months here, man. There's no doubt about that. And hopefully we'll be riding the Notre Dame coattails here for a little while and, you know, well into December.
For sure. For sure. As long as we can, hopefully into a college football playoff run. And we'll talk about the first rankings here in a minute. But I do want to tell you about my bookie. They're the one sports book that's got your back. They've got no fluff, no second guessing, just straight up action with you in total control. At my bookie, it's never about guessing. It's about giving you the edge so that every bet that you place comes with confidence and a plan. And if you know football and love to win, then, well, quite frankly, my bookie was made for you. And if you're new to the game, not sure where to start, we've got a promo code for you, IRISH, IRISH, and that'll double your bankroll with a 100% deposit bonus right from the jump. It's more money, more power to make winning plays. So if you've already bet with my bookie, you can take advantage of my bookie plus as well, their new loyalty rewards program. So bet anything, anytime, from anywhere with my bookie, the sports book that gives you control and rewards for every moment of play. It is mailbag night, so submit those questions and of course hit the like button, pretty please, as you come into the show tonight. Beezer, not a question, but Beezer 12 Washing Beard says he's going to be at his first Notre Dame game in South Bend this weekend. Yes, I picked the game before the season started. He says, I've been wondering like how many people did get their ticket, you know, like this was a hot ticket before the season started.
Right.
Like how many people bought their tickets for this game? And then as Florida State season started unraveling, who decided to put them on StubHub or, you know, wherever it happens to be, sell them and it's just, it's not quite worth the trip. I wonder.
Well, and you know, it'd be nice to have the kind of money to be like, nah, it's not worth the trip. You know, after you made all kinds of reservations and bought tickets and everything else. And, you know, let's go to a different game. You know what I mean? Like most people, like I'm sure Beezer is concerned. He bought these and this is his trip for the year. Like he's coming out and it's going to be fun. And, you know, he circled this one on the calendar and he's coming regardless. And I don't think anybody would have guessed that they would be 1-8 at this point. I think a lot of people would have figured they'd be 8-1 going into this game and, you know, probably hosting game day and, you know, all of the above. And unfortunately, that is just not the case. And I have to say, I am not overly obviously I don't look forward to night games at all, just because it's such a late night for us. But I was looking forward to Florida State Notre Dame. Like this was one that was circled on the calendar. It's why
absolutely.
You know what I mean? And now it's just like, ugh, do we have to do that? Like, can they just forfeit? And like, do we have to have this game? Like, that's how I feel right now. That's how I feel.
It could be worse. I mean, at least we're going into this game with Notre Dame favored. I don't know if you remember, I believe it was 2003 when Florida State came up here when Tyrone Willingham was the head coach, and they just shellacked. And that was only 10 years, of course, after the game of the century. And they just shellacked Notre Dame at Notre Dame Stadium. So
it's ugly.
Would much rather have it be Notre Dame doing the shellacking than the other
for
way
sure.
around.
Look, I will get
if it turns out that way.
I will get some enjoyment out of Notre Dame, handling Florida State, which they should do. I mean, they've got quarterback problems, they've got offensive problems, they got all kinds of issues, right? And then they're going to have. It's going to be like the purge on the coaching staff, I would imagine, at the end of the year. And Mike Norvell's not going to lose his job because he just got a brand new contract. But his assistants didn't get new contracts, I doubt. And I have a feeling he'll probably have some new ones going into next year. So these guys are all, you would love to say that they're playing for their lives. They're, playing for contracts. They're doing all. They're not. I mean, they don't even care at this point. It's ugly. It's ugly.
It is what it is, right? It is what it is. TD4ND wants to know if Notre Dame Stadium will be full Saturday night. What do you think?
Probably not. Honestly, I mean, like I said, there's going to be people that bought tickets a long time ago that are coming in from out of town that are going to still come regardless. You know what I mean? Because they want to see Notre Dame play. They were hoping for a better game, but it is what it is. But you're going to see plenty of people, especially right now. The weather forecast looks pretty good, to be honest. But if something turns with the weather or, the fact that it definitely won't be a full stadium the entire game, that's for sure. You might see a lot of exodus.
It's not supposed to be too cold, though, right? Like
no,
50s,
it's not supposed to be bad 50s, at all.
Something like that. Maybe a little bit of rain.
Yeah, I'm going to pull. Yeah, the rain is what worries me to a degree. But, yeah, they're not. This app, granted, is not predicting any rain. It's supposed to be about 52 degrees at kickoff and about 50 degrees when it's over and cloudy.
Okay.
So, that's for November. Are you kidding me? Like, that's great weather.
I think it'll be mostly full. It's the only night game of the season. It's a unique environment. It is, it does still say Florida State and like it's I do, true. Again, I do wonder people traveling in who bought those tickets early, like I saw Joe saying tickets are getting cheap right now, so there probably are a lot of people trying to unload them. The question is, if you booked your trip, I guess maybe you can cancel the flight and keep the, like the flight credit for something else,
there you go.
Depending on how, how early you tried to do that. But yeah, I think it'll be mostly full. There might be some spots out there, but like you said, by the fourth quarter, I think you'll start to see some people kind of heading out.
You're ever the optimist, Sean Steyer.
Yeah, that's me. Xavier Kilowatts. Every year, a team falls out of the college football playoff rankings after losing to an unranked team. Who do you think it'll be this year, and who do they lose to?
So, I mean, we're talking the entire top 25, or are we just talking about like?
Well, I think he's talking about like top 12 is kind of how, I guess he didn't specify, but that's kind of how I looked at it. Like the teams that would be, in that top 12 as of right now in position to actually be in the playoff.
Well, I think honestly, I would not, it's probably not going to happen, but I would not be surprised if Penn State either lost to Washington or Minnesota over the next couple of weeks. Neither one of them are ranked. So I guess that would be my first one, because I just don't think Penn State's all that great. I mean, they haven't beat a ranked team yet. They're just not
this is established. Great. We know that you don't like Penn State.
Nope.
I mean, the thing about Penn State, whether you like them or not, is James Franklin and Brian Kelly very similar, because they take care of business, by and large in the games they're supposed to take care of business. It's the big games that they fall short in. Like
they don't have any big games left. And
exactly. But
yeah,
that's my point is I think that they'll take care of business against these
yeah,
teams they're supposed to take care of business
the
against.
problem is going to be when they start really comparing resumes as they get closer to the end of the season, because Penn State's resume is not going to hold up against a lot of teams, in my opinion. So regardless of whether they win out or don't win out, I just don't know that they're going to stay where they're at. But we'll see.
I don't know how they're going to fall if they keep winning, though.
I just think the committee's going to start taking a closer look at actual resumes and who they actually played. That's what I think is going to happen.
I don't.
Just like if IU loses to Ohio State, they drop like a rock. They will be nowhere near the top.
I think it depends on how competitive the game is. I think if they get their doors blown, which I don't think they will, I think it'll be fairly competitive. But I think if they lose a close competitive game, I don't think they're going to fall that far. I think that they'll stay in there.
We shall see.
So, I know
because you
and I disagree on these resume points, but I mean
they're only at 9 now.
Right.
They're only at 9 now. It's not going to take much for them to drop out.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But that would also be a ranked team. Like this question was what unranked team?
100%. Yes, absolutely correct. Yeah, that really doesn't have anything to do with this particular question. So I went off the reservation on that one.
I mean, I like the first team that came to mind for me would be Indiana, but the problem is in terms of the unranked team that like Indiana's got 3 games left. They play Michigan, they play Ohio State, they play Purdue. Only, only 2 of those are unranked. They're not going to lose to Purdue. I don't think they're going to lose to Michigan, but this is still kind of like if you're Indiana, like it's like seeing Michigan on the other side. Yeah. Like how much does that carry? Because there is some history. They've had a lot of close games with Michigan over the years, but they've never quite been able to punch it through. I mean, that's the only one for me. But the other team that came to mind for me is BYU because they've got Utah coming up, massive rivalry game this weekend. And for BYU, a lot of people were picking them, myself included, to win the Big 12 in their first season. And then they close out with Houston, a team that just beat Kansas State last week. So BYU has 4 games remaining: Utah, Kansas, Arizona State, and Houston. And I see 2 of those, Utah and Houston, being completely losable, especially this Utah game this weekend because of the rivalry and everything else. This is, kind of last chance for Utah to kind of spoil their big rivals, the Holy War and all that kind of stuff. So otherwise, I just, like it, as I look at those, I don't see too many opportunities. Most of these teams I think are good enough that they're not going to get knocked off.
Agreed. Well, I don't necessarily agree, but I was finished with the.
You at least agree with the last 2 words that I said.
Yeah, I still think there's going to be a lot of turmoil. I think there's going to be turmoil. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Let me see. So you think, okay. DK says, why can't the playoff committee be made up of ex-players like Jerry Rice that played at small schools? They know the game and they don't have bias or agenda.
Oh, everybody's got a bias or an agenda. Everybody. So I'm taking that spin on this one. But they do have people on the committee that don't have anything to do with sports. I mean, wasn't Condoleezza Rice on the committee at one point?
First one that came to mind. She's been one like probably the most prominent player who's been on the committee.
Tyrone Willingham has been on the committee. Does he have a dog in the fight? You know what I mean? He's been at multiple schools. Things
Not anymore.
Well, I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
oh, exactly.
So I think they do a decent job of like cross section of people. Yeah, look, ADs are on there because they have knowledge of the way things go. And somebody said in the chat that they think that Ward Emanuel is the chairman. He's the AD at Michigan. And they think that he's biased towards Big Ten schools. Well, maybe he is, but he's not the one that's making all the decisions.
There's still a group of people.
Committee.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not like he's the president and he has like veto power. And it's like,
he's not putting his thumb on the scale. Yeah.
Right. So he's just the guy that's speaking for the group
on behalf of the committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And didn't do a great job of that the other night. I mean, I wasn't all that impressed with his particular interview. He's, but whatever. I mean, it's fine. They do a decent job. There's enough people on that committee, in my opinion, with varying degrees of allegiances and all of that, that I think you're going to get a decent cross section.
Yeah, I was going to say, honestly, I think you need people who represent all the conferences, and that includes like the group of fives and all that kind of stuff. You need that kind of represent, because let's be honest. You could get former players, but like how closely, like you use Jerry Rice as the example. How closely does Jerry Rice actually follow college football?
Right.
Just because he played football, how closely does he actually follow what's going on in college football? And I think that there are a lot of players who are like that. So like just plucking names and saying, well, he's got no bias because he went to Jackson State or, Mississippi Valley State, obviously with Jerry Rice or whatever.
I mean, who says Jerry Rice wants to be on the committee? Yeah, it's a lot of work to be on the committee. Like you said, having to watch all those games and do all the research and being, have intimate knowledge about all of these different teams and what they're doing and who they play and that.
Well, and look, what's the difference? The only difference between this committee and let's say the AP voters, for example, is the committee gets together in a room. They're still just kind of casting their own votes out there. Now they're, debating things and discussing things, but like with the AP poll, it's media people who follow different teams. Some of them take their jobs more seriously than others when it comes to, actually watching as many games as possible, submitting their ballots and all that different kind of stuff. So like what's the difference? Like, because the media people are actually at least at college football games every week, watching closely someone play college football, and I think that when you do look at what's going on when the committee spits out these rankings and stuff like that, you do wonder sometimes how closely some of them are watching football.
Oh, I completely agree with that statement. Completely agree. But, I think that, it would be a great job. I would love to be on the committee. I think that sounds like a lot of fun, just being paid to watch, take a trip to Texas and watch a bunch of football and give my opinion. That sounds pretty ideal to me. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
ND Forever 72 says, after seeing the college football playoff rankings, chances if Notre Dame wins out, they end up in the 5 to 8 range for a home game. Not sure that will happen based off what I see now. What do you think about that? If they win out, are they hosting?
Yes. No, I think 6 is probably the highest that they could probably get. So maybe in that 6, 7, maybe 8 range. But yeah, I think if they win out, they'll be hosting. I do. I think there's going to be enough action above them that just if they win out, they're just automatically going to move up a couple of spots based on teams moving down past them.
Here's the problem, though, with your theory, Vince, because I know you keep thinking chaos is coming because chaos usually does come in November. Maybe it will, but the problem is when you look at the teams in front of them, none of them play each other. Like, and most of them play. What's that?
They will in the conference championships.
Right. But I did see this after our last argument. The conference championship games, like if you get to the conference championship game and you're ranked in the top 12, you're not going to fall out of the top 12, is what the committee has already said. Like you're still going to be like, the committee has said it, Vince. So like you can say we'll see, but the committee has said it out loud.
If the second place ACC team is number 11 going into the conference championship and they lose, they're out. I guarantee it.
Well, I think that's out. I think, Vince, I think that is even a more bold statement than the infamous Mike Denbrock statement that came back to bite you almost a year ago. They have said that a loss in a conference
Who
championship
said that?
game,
I watched that
the
interview.
committee, like
When?
not last night, but it was reported last week. I mean, I'll find the article if I
Yeah, I
can
need to
find
see
it,
that.
but there was a quote in there,
I need to see who it was from and when it was made because I don't believe it. They can say all they want.
I've got to
now.
prove it to Vince.
Yes, because I just don't.
They said a loss in the conference championship game would not be counted as
and
an
why have a
extra loss
conference championship game?
because the conferences want to make money. I mean, that's the only reason they play these games. They serve no purpose for the actual college football playoff. The conference championship games take place so that conferences can make money from TV networks and putting fans in the stadium.
So there's not going to be any change in the rankings from the beginning of conference championship weekend to the end. There are going to be no changes. There can't be.
Saying that. I'm not saying
yes,
that.
You are. You're saying
no,
that you're saying that the losers aren't going to move at all.
But you're saying once they get to the conference championship game, there's a difference between that and all the games that take place until there. Yeah, there's going to be some shuffling around, but I don't know. I guess we'll see if the upsets come. We've actually got a question in rapid fire that deals with this. So I think that there will be some. I'm not saying there's not going to be any movement, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as volatile as we're used to because of the fact that not everybody is playing each other in the conferences anymore.
So here's what I'll say then. I will grant your premise that a second place a loser of a conference championship game is not going to fall out of the top 12, but they will fall, and they will fall behind Notre Dame.
And how much
therefore, Notre Dame bumps up, and they will be hosting. See how we can both be right?
Okay. I can buy into that. I do tend to think that, look, all Notre Dame has to do is move up 2 spots between now and the end of the month.
Right.
To me, it's going to come down to style points at the end of the day. If they win out and get a little bit of help, then yeah, they'll move up.
Completely agree. I think one of the things I said last night on the show was, in my opinion, Notre Dame controls their destiny. I think Notre Dame controls their destiny, and that's a great spot to be in if you're Notre Dame, because don't worry about anything else going on around you. Just go ahead and you win out by double digits every single time, by 15, 20 points, whatever, or more. And I think it'll be I think they'll be hosting. I think we will not be traveling for December 20th or 21st or whenever we have to go cover a game.
TD4ND asks, is this season a data point for joining a conference?
No, not even a little bit. Because they're going to move to 16 teams here soon, and that's 2 more at-large spots.
Well, 14.
Or 14, excuse me. So that's 2 more spots that Notre Dame's going to have a chance to get. So no, it's not. And we've debunked the Notre Dame needs a bye and all that. Like, we debunked that a long time ago. I mean, the only issue with not being in a conference is, and Notre Dame's going to have to worry about this every single year, but I think it is a okay thing to have to worry about every year, is that you have to worry about an out of the top 12 team upsetting a conference champion and automatically moving in to the playoff, right? So you don't want to see those bid stealers. Like, that's the biggest deal, is you don't want to see those bid stealers. You can probably absorb 1 or 2 of those if you have a loss on your record if you're Notre Dame, right? But you don't want to see a bunch of those. You know what I mean? So I think that's the biggest issue for Notre Dame, but I don't think that's enough to push them into a conference.
No. I mean, I think that one thing that they're going to kind of have to continue to look at going forward, like Jack Swarbrick always said, anytime he picked up the phone to talk to somebody about schedule, like that, people were calling him all the time, and anytime he picked up the phone, he never had any problem. Now, with bigger conferences and less flexibility, like I think the USC thing is still kind of out there. Like how, does the USC series remain a
Sure.
yearly series? Obviously Notre Dame wants it to, but from USC standpoint, would they want it to be intermittent because of the fact of, all those things that Lincoln Riley was crying about, last summer, whenever it was, like those kind of things. Like do all these expanded conferences make it more difficult for Notre Dame to continue to schedule the way they need to down the road? They'll probably get games, they'll be able to still get games with a lot of different teams around the country, but will the rivalries as we know them be able to continue the way they do?
It just depends on, I think a lot of that depends on the vigor at which both ADs at both schools want to continue having it be a rivalry. You know what I mean? Like, I think, if they both want it to happen and both fan bases want it to happen, I say fan bases, I mean the people with the moolah. Like, if they want it to happen, then I think it'll happen. But if it's not important to the athletic directors, then it won't happen, because it's going to take extra work and extra time to make it happen, right? Like, look, Notre Dame just announced that they're going to play Texas, in 4 or 5 years. So they're on the schedule. Alabama's on the schedule, moving forward. They just have SMU was added to the schedule. So, like, I don't think Notre Dame's going to have any issue adding teams to their schedule moving forward. I just don't see it. I think people are still banging down the door to have Notre Dame play a home and home with them.
Sure.
But it's going to take more, right? It's like, you and I were trying to schedule something for us to do together next week, and it's like, okay, well, I'm busy here and I'm busy here and you're busy here and so figure it out. So it's going to take a little extra,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it's still all doable. That I guess that's the point I'm making.
Yeah. So Joe wants to know, will a 2-loss ACC or Big 12 champion screw over Notre Dame if the team they beat only has 1 loss in that game? For example, Clemson over Miami or Iowa State over BYU. I guess Clemson's case, they could still make it in, even though SMU is undefeated right now in conference play. So, I mean, I see what you're saying. So, like, SMU would have to lose to Boston College, Virginia, or Cal to not end up playing Miami, assuming Miami doesn't also get upset in the conference championship game. What do you think?
I mean, that's where I think that's what goes back to, like, the bid stealers, right? I mean, it would be somebody outside the top 12 that ends up winning, and then
if this scenario happens, it would impact Notre Dame at the very
100%.
least. It's going to impact their seeding, most likely.
Yes, 100%. I don't know, and it just depends on a lot of other pieces and parts as to whether it would bump Notre Dame out. Is that possible? Yes, in a perfect scenario, yes, that's possible. But Notre Dame would have to be that. That's why I think it's so important for Notre Dame to be in that hosting area, that 5 through 8 area. If you're in 5 through 8, you're not going to get bumped out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're sitting here at 10, like I say, Notre Dame's at 10 at the end of the season.
Really, if you're
in trouble.
If you're probably 8 through 12, there's a good chance that you get hosed someplace, just depending.
Right. So that's where you have to worry about bid stealers, I think. So you want to be north of 8 to feel comfortable that no matter what chaos occurs during the conference championships, then Notre Dame would be okay. They might get bumped out of hosting, right? But you're still in. And that's, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. But you want to position yourself, and that is pretty much up to Notre Dame at this point. But you want to position yourself so that chaos doesn't bump you out.
Antoine wants to know, if SMU plays Miami in the ACC championship game and wins, does Miami still make the playoffs? Most likely they do. Assuming Miami goes in undefeated, yes, they're both. That's
right.
That's a disaster scenario, like Vince was just talking about. Like, without, not having the 2-loss, like the 2-loss applied to Clemson, obviously, because they've got a non-conference loss and a conference loss. So they're still in the thick of the ACC race to get in that conference championship game. But yeah, like if again, like if it's Clemson knocking off Miami or Clemson even knocking off SMU, if somehow Miami were to get knocked out before they got there, yeah, in that situation, then that would impact, like this specific question though, Miami's getting in the playoff still.
And now if Miami somehow loses a game between now and the end of the season and they're both one loss and then they play each other, then one of them probably not, then I think Miami would fall out, to be perfectly honest with you, because I don't think right now, I don't think that they respect the ACC and I don't think they respect the Big 12 as it is, right? And so I think a 2-loss ACC or a 2-loss Big 12, I think it's going to have trouble staying in.
And that's the only way either one of those conferences are getting 2 teams in is if there is an upset in the conference championship game. But then again, like, is BYU still sitting where they're sitting right now at number 9 when that happens, or are they high? Like how much room do they have to absorb? Is what I'm saying. Like if they were to lose in the conference championship game, but that's the only way. And again, like that's sort of the disaster scenario for Notre Dame if you were to get upsets in both conference championship games, and you're already looking at multiple Big Ten and SEC teams getting in. That's the doomsday for Notre Dame, sitting where they are at number 10 right now.
Right. Yeah, 10 is a precarious spot to be in. I mean, I think it's good for Notre Dame right now on November 6th. This is not where Notre Dame wants to be on December 6th. You know what I mean? That would not be a comfortable place for me for Notre Dame. I think it's fine for now, but they're going to have an opportunity to move up, and I think that's where like you said, north of 8, I feel a lot better about things.
DK, should we want Brian Kelly and LSU to win over Alabama since we should beat the 2 common opponents, Texas A&M and USC, and will it knock Bama out? This is an elimination game. I think this is an elimination game between these two.
It might knock Alabama out, but then it bumps LSU in. So I don't know how much. Yes, sure. Alabama would definitely be out at that point. But if LSU loses, they're definitely out. So, I guess you can root for Brian Kelly. It's a big game, so you're probably not going to have a whole lot of luck. But, the common opponent thing is going to come into play at the end, with the resume. It will. Just like the common opponent thing is going to come into play if you are going to match up Notre Dame and Penn State at the end of the season, because they're going to have 2 common opponents, USC and Purdue. Right. And so you can match those up and decide, who did what to who and where and when and all, you know what I mean? So yes, when you have common opponents, you need to do better than they did.
I'll call it right now. LSU beats Alabama this weekend, but Brian Kelly suffers losses to 2 of his former Notre Dame defensive coordinators in the same season, because they got Vandy and the Clark Lees coming up here.
Oh, that would be great.
So
that would be great.
Yes.
So great. I will. It's rare that I will ever root for Brian Kelly, but I might have to do that this weekend.
Right. As DJ says, LSU does only have 1 conference loss right now. So, I mean, they're in the thick of things in terms
Which is true. And here's the thing though. With LSU only having 1 conference loss, but they've got 2 losses overall, we're talking about making it into the college football playoff. But if they beat Alabama, they're only going to have that 1 conference loss, and they could make it into the conference championship, right? I mean, that's what you have to worry about. Now, I don't know what all the tiebreakers are with the SEC and all of that. Once we get closer, I'll start looking into that and seeing what's what and who's actually eligible and all of those different things. But, A&M only has 1 conference loss as well at the moment, correct?
Yes.
They have 2 losses and 1's to Notre Dame. So, it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. I would like to say bring on LSU in the conference championship, because they're probably going to lose it. But with 2 losses, that's a very precarious place to be, right?
Mm-hmm. Andre wants to know, do you believe any team should get an automatic bye regardless of conference?
mean, that's the way they set it up, that the top 4 teams get a bye. I mean, somebody's going to have to get a bye. You've got a 12-team playoff, right? I mean, the numbers don't work. So somebody has to get a bye in there. And I don't have a problem with it being the conference champions. I really don't. So it's fine with the way it is. I don't – it's not a big bugaboo to me.
And I mean, if they expand, they're going to go to 14. So you'd still have to, again, just the way it meant. Like if you went straight to 16, then you don't have to have buys. But they want to go 14, and because I think they want to continue to give the buys and all that stuff. So should they?
Would it
I don't
still
have a problem with it.
Would it still be 4 if it's 14?
I can't remember. It's been so long since I've seen like the actual 14. Laid out.
Look at it, but
yeah, I'm not sure.
Or maybe there's like a double buy kind of a situation. Like,
yeah. Joe, better program, Renaissance, BYU or SMU?
Ooh, well, I mean, come on. SMU came back from the death penalty, Sean.
It took them 40 years ago.
I was going to say, it took them 40 years, but here they are rising from the ashes, okay? They were some old ashes, but they're rising up, baby. BYU was what, big in the 80s? Early 90s?
Yeah, early 90s. Ty Detmer, and they've had a couple seasons here and there. Yeah. Ty Detmer screwed over Rocket Ismail for the Heisman Trophy and all that stuff. Yeah.
That's true. I don't know. I like SMU. I like that story better.
The guy threw like almost 20 interceptions, I think, and they still gave him the Heisman Trophy that year. It's like
terrible.
I think they like watching little guys run around and throw the football, I guess. Him and Doug Flutie won it not that far apart. I'd go with SMU though, because like SMU, BYU was an independent just a few years ago, but at least they've had like some sort of more recent sort of big picture gravitas or whatever. It's been a long time since SMU has had any relevance, and that's why they wanted so badly to get to the ACC. So
and they're taking advantage of them being in a Power 4 conference. I mean, I give them a lot of credit. You can say what you want to about the ACC. But SMU is making a name for themselves. I've been impressed with the Mustangs, the Thangs.
Antoine wants to know what it would do for Notre Dame if A&M beats Texas and makes it to the SEC championship game.
It only helps them. I mean, right now A&M is Notre Dame's best win. That's not going to change anytime soon with the next 4 that they've got. And so they want A&M to be as strong and as powerful as they can possibly be. So, yeah, that only helps them.
Yeah, I mean, look, the win over Texas A&M, I said this, I think, yesterday. The win this week over Texas A&M is not as good as it was last week because last week A&M hadn't lost to South Carolina. Right. So if Texas A&M can go out and beat a team like Texas, which is ranked ahead of every, like both of them right now, it would help Notre Dame greatly. And just like you said, you want every Notre Dame opponent to keep winning out until they play Notre Dame. But that would be another kind of nice shot in the arm for Notre Dame to kind of help. That's going to be their best win, no matter what. No matter who they beat the rest of the way. So the better they can do.
Yeah, the SEC is going to be an interesting one as far as who's going to make it to the championship and everything, because you've got
there's so many teams in play still. Yeah.
You got 5 teams with 1 loss.
See, like that's where the SEC is the only conference when you look at who plays who, that's the only conference to me where you're going to potentially see the most trouble come. Like not the most trouble. Things that could help Notre Dame because you've got good teams playing other good teams.
Yep.
Whereas in the Big 10, the Big 12, and the ACC, you just don't have it. The good teams aren't playing each other. So.
No, I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. You've got 3 SEC teams, with 1 loss overall, but 5 of them are no loss, is 1 loss in the conference. So a lot of teams with still a lot in front of them right now in the SEC. But you're right. I think you're going to see a little bit of carnage, taking place in there. And what is the committee going to do at that point? You know what I mean? And what that looks like. So, but yeah, if LSU beats Alabama and Alabama has 3 losses, that's an elimination game. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yep. Beezer 12 Washingbeard, midseason MVP for Notre Dame or nationally. So like a Notre Dame midseason MVP.
Man. Midseason MVP for Notre Dame.
It's a little past midseason, but
well, it is because they've
just
played. This is like the 2/3 of the way season
right.
MVP. Jeremiah Love, maybe. I mean, you could make a case for Riley Leonard. I know that's kind of an easy one since he's the quarterback.
Yeah.
Xavier Watts, I think, garners some attention here. He's just quietly gone and had a great season, doing what he does back there at safety. I probably would pick Riley Leonard, to be perfectly honest with you. I think their fortunes rise and set with how he plays.
That's probably the direction that I would go. I mean, you're not going to have one loss without a good quarterback. Just look at the rest of the college football world. He obviously started slower than any of us thought, but he's still ascending right now. And
he definitely is.
Stymie said Al Golden. I mean, that's kind of hard to argue against either, like if you want to kind of expand it a little bit. I might just have to go Travis Hunter with my national MVP. The fact that guy
he plays like 140 plays a game or some nonsense, man. Like
I know. And Colorado is winning,
I know.
That's the thing.
I really want to dislike Colorado and everything about them. I really do. I want to. But you have to tip your cap to what this kid is doing. I mean, not only is he playing both ways, this isn't, he dabbles on offense he's playing both ways. The kid never comes off the field, and he's doing it at a high level, and his team is winning. The fact that we're having even a discussion about Colorado potentially crashing the college football playoff party is just mind-blowing to me. And a lot of it has to do with him. So I'm with you. He's the leader in the clubhouse for the Heisman Trophy right now, and I don't think it's all that close. Yeah, the kid from Boise. I
didn't think that he would be at this point in the season because I thought that Colorado would have at least 2 or 3 more losses than what they've got at this point.
Oh, me too. Look, the kid at Boise State's really good, the running back, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
But he's sucking water and wind, when the defense is on the field. You know what I mean? So you got to give Travis Hunter a lot of credit.
I know.
I mean,
he's literally out there playing all but like 5 snaps a game, offense, defense. Like,
correct.
How can you argue with that?
That's amazing to me. I have gone to the death with coaches, high school coaches, that say you can't go both ways, and this kid's doing it at a high level college situation. So it's extremely impressive.
Hang on a second. Let me see here. I've got my PFF thing up. I was going to see if I can find. There it is. Let me see if I can find Colorado real quick, and I'll give you. There they are. So let's see. Offensive snaps for Travis Hunter, 451. Jordan Seaton, one of their offensive linemen, has played 558. So he has played all but about 100 snaps offensively.
Which makes sense as a wide receiver. I mean, yeah.
Defensively, he has played 430 snaps.
That's almost 900 snaps in however many games they've played. Right?
Think about that.
Have they even played 9 games? They probably played 8 games. So that's over 100 snaps.
8 games. 8 games. Yep.
That's over 100 snaps, like 120 snaps a game. 110, something like that. If my back of the envelope math is good. That's unbelievable to me. And he's doing it at a high level. He's not just out there. He's not just a guy. No, he's a dude.
Playing very well on both sides of the ball.
Right.
Yes. Antoine wants to know if it'll matter if Notre Dame beats Florida State worse than Miami did.
Not really. It'll matter if Miami loses a game at some point, because then you're comparing resumes and comparing common opponents and et cetera, et cetera. But as long as Miami's undefeated, it won't matter.
The biggest thing is win the game convincingly. And Style points will matter at this point. Like if you struggle to get by a bad team, it's going to impact you. And obviously, if you lose to a bad team, you're done. But if you struggle against a bad team and there's only one good team, like there's one, Army is undefeated. Virginia is better than Virginia usually is. But, those are the two best teams that Notre Dame has out there right now. Now, as we've talked about before, Florida State and USC both have talent. They're just neither one of them are playing very well. But like what your margin of victory is compared to Miami's is not going to matter as long as you don't look bad and you win convincingly in the process. That's all that really matters.
I mean, shoot, the spread is like 22 or something like that. I think I heard.
Last I saw was 26.
Well, there you go. It's even higher than I thought. You got to cover. Hey, you got to cover if you're Notre Dame. I mean, that's winning convincingly. You got to cover against Florida State. It's a home game. They're grasping at straws. Like you've got to put your foot on their neck. Like you've got to win big. And this one should not be close. That's what it needs to be. So the style points are going to be important for when you start, like I said, when you start comparing resumes.
Yeah, again, what the actual score is. Like if you win by 4 touchdowns instead of 3, that's not going to matter ultimately. The biggest question again is going to be like as long as you win convincingly, as opposed to needing a last-second field goal or a last-second touchdown or whatever to beat a team like Florida State, that will impact you.
Yes.
If you struggle at home against a team that's 1-8.
And like flow of the game is going to be important. Do you come out and score on your first 4 or 5 drives, and then maybe the other team scores once or something like that. And then you put your second team in and then there's a point scored or, something along those lines. I think that does play into it, but you also don't want to leave too much to the imagination for the committee either. You want to make it convincing without having to watch the game.
TD4ND says 16-team playoff has 3 rounds, same as the 12-team playoff. Yeah, the difference is in a 12-team playoff, you have a first-round bye for the top 4 teams.
Correct.
Yeah. The rounds would be this, because that's why you have the byes, because it essentially equates to if 16 teams were in it in terms of the rounds. So, yeah. So, if you had a 16-team field, you would not have byes.
I like there being byes, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, there does have to be some sort of a reward for winning your conference championship.
There's incentive for playing that extra game at the end of the season.
I have no problem with that. I really don't. I don't have any problem with that. I think that's fine. And if you're a legitimate number 1 through 4 team and you're not in a conference, well, then you get to be number 5, and that's just the way it goes. You know what I mean? And if you're a legitimate 1 through 4 and you're in a conference, you better win your conference. That's how you get a bye. So I really don't have a problem with that.
Joe, our friend in Wichita, Kansas, wants to know from me, worst city in Kansas, Salina or Lawrence? And I don't know where this comes from, Joe, but if I'm going which is worse, it is Salina all the way. Salina's in the middle, Salina where I went to high school and all that, lived for 6 years, I guess, before I left town. Lawrence is where I went to school. If I were going to move back to Kansas, Lawrence is the only city I would live in. I will say that.
Well, because you probably want a job working for Kansas.
Well, there's just more things going on. It's also close to Kansas City, but you're not in Kansas City.
Gotcha.
My wife's family is in Topeka, which is 15 minutes from Lawrence, so it's in between both Topeka and Kansas City. And so you got a lot of stuff like when we were in college, we used to go to Royals games all the time. We could get there in 45 minutes.
Oh, beautiful.
That kind of thing. So, yeah. And then obviously all the stuff going on with the university and everything in town. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
I am so ready for rapid fire, and it's been one of those days. So this is all going to be first come, first serve. So let's do this.
Okay. I'm surprised that this didn't come up at all during the mailbag. I don't know if maybe people didn't see it or they just don't care that much about it. But The ACC announced today that Notre Dame is going to host SMU in 2026. SMU is going to replace Virginia on Notre Dame's schedule that season. It'll be the first meeting between Notre Dame and SMU since 1989. What do you think of this, Vince?
I think it's going to be one of 12 opponents that are probably going to get annihilated during CJ Carr's Heisman Trophy winning season. So I think it's great. I think it's fantastic.
I love it. Yeah, it helps that SMU is better this year, so it looks a little bit better 2 years down the road already.
Yeah,
I like,
good point.
I like the fact that, Notre Dame has played Virginia a few times. Notre Dame is playing Virginia this season. I like the fact that they're mixing it up. Yeah, like they're mixing it up. We're going to get to see SMU here. It should be a quality opponent if they continue.
Yeah,
like anything like what they've been doing so this season anyway. So scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a 10. It's a nice little bonus to have SMU.
I didn't do the scale. I'm a 10 as well, and I like. Why would you not want an excuse to go to Dallas if they, eventually if it's a home and home, you get to go down there. I say
maybe they have it in Jerry World where Notre Dame's already played a couple of times. Who knows?
Just saying. That's a win for everybody, Sean. It's a win for everybody.
It is.
And it'll probably be a Cowboys home game the next day.
I would have a hard time turning that down.
That's all I'm saying.
Fill in the blank. Notre Dame's number 10 ranking in the first college football playoff ranking tells you blank about their playoff chances.
It tells me they have their destiny in their own hands. And like I said, I mentioned this yesterday. If I'm a coach, that's what I'm preaching to these guys. You know what I mean? If I'm Marcus Freeman, that's my speech to the guys. Like, look, we're at 10, we're in, we take care of our business, we're going to be fine. And what I mean by take care of our business is we need to show that we're the better team every time we take the field over the next 4 weeks. Leave nothing to chance. Leave nothing to doubt. We control our own destiny. That's what you want if you're a coach. Don't want you guys scoreboard watching. Things could happen that could benefit you. That's great. But you need to stay focused on what you're focused on, and that's proving who the best team on the field is. That's all you got to worry about. I think they're in a good spot right now. I would have loved to see them maybe at 9, but that's one spot. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that big of a difference. And so I think they're going to be just fine where they're at. Take care of your business. You're going to move up a few spots, and you're probably going to end up hosting, barring something crazy happening.
Well, look, I said last night when we were predicting that I thought that they were going to beat number 10, and here they are at number 10. Well, and look, some people were not happy with that because, they should be 8. They should be not, whatever. And it's like, okay, 8 to 10. That's where they could be. Look, the loss to Northern Illinois matters. Like, that's one thing that I think is clear when you look at the fact that Notre Dame is number 10 and the fact that, with their one loss being to Northern Illinois and their best win being against Texas A&M, as much as people have, continued to scream, well, it's who you beat. It's not who you lost to. The committee showed who you lost to matters. And I mean, there are a lot of people nationally who hold the loss to Northern Illinois against Notre Dame, even more than the committee held that loss against Notre Dame. They still held it against them. That's why they're number 10. And it's why with no losses, BYU and Indiana are ahead of Notre Dame right now. But, again, like we kind of went through this a little bit last night, if you look at everybody who's got a loss ahead of Notre Dame, Notre Dame's loss to Northern Illinois is still the worst loss of anyone who is in the playoff picture right now. And it does matter, so like, again, if we get into some of these doomsday scenarios where you've got all these teams that, that like maybe Notre Dame could get pushed, but they're in really good shape right now. And I do agree with what you're saying. As long as they take care of business, I think that they are in the playoff.
Yeah, no, I'm
taking care of business also means what we were just talking about with style points. You cannot look bad and win a game against any of these 4 remaining teams.
You can't give anybody any more ammunition against you. They've already got Northern Illinois. That's a lot of ammunition all by itself. Now you've got a counterpoint that it was at the beginning of the year, how good you've looked the last, well, what'll end up being the last 10 weeks of the season, all of that.
You have wins over 3 ranked teams. Yeah,
exactly. You can kind of explain it away to a degree, but at the end of the day, you will always have the worst loss. You're always going to have the worst loss. You have to hope, if you're Notre Dame, that there's more teams with 2 losses, not just a bunch of 1 loss teams.
And you just have to continue to keep showing that's not who we are now.
Exactly.
And again, that's why you can't afford to look bad, even if you win a game. You need to,
exactly right.
You can't be sloppy because everyone's watching now.
Correct.
So one of the national narratives coming out of the first playoff ranking is that brand names are being favored in these rankings. Do you buy or sell that?
To a degree, I buy it. But to a degree, I mean, you're going to yell at me, but Penn State is up there when they probably don't deserve it. But I mean, you've got 4 Big Ten, you've got 4 SEC, and then you've got 1 ACC, 1 Big 12, 1 Independent, and then 1 Mountain West. It matters, right? It matters that you're part of a big conference. It matters what is on the side of your helmet. It matters. A lot of people were saying that IU is getting disrespected. I don't think they're getting disrespected. They're in the top 10. They're undefeated.
Well,
they haven't played a team that's over 500 yet either.
But when I look at, it's a fair point. But if it says Michigan instead of Indiana, they basically have got the same resume that Michigan had for most of last season, right? Like who had Michigan beaten?
No, that's 100% true. But if IU beats Ohio State like Michigan did, they'll vault up.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
Where they are right now, like Indiana and BYU both, if they were, take your pick of anybody who's in front of them. Obviously, if they were Miami, they'd be higher. Like Miami hasn't, now Indiana and Notre Dame of the teams in the top 12 do have the worst strength of schedules, but again, like Michigan's strength of schedule was nothing to write home about last year. And if
they totally got lifted by their brand last year,
Indiana would be number 2 if their name was Michigan instead of Indiana.
That's fair.
Right now, I guarantee you.
My argument would be, who gives a crap? You take care of your business.
That's right. You take care of your business, you're fine.
Right. You're absolutely right. You are 100% correct that if you reversed and you put a different logo on there, that they would be higher. I 1,000% agree with you, because look at Penn State. That would be my argument right there. Penn State does not deserve to be number 6 in any way, shape, or form, but they are because of who they are, because they're Penn State. That's it.
They at least beat Illinois, ranked team.
Was ranked, not currently ranked.
Well, right, but ranked at the time. Well, but look, like if we're going to be fair, Notre Dame still uses.
Notre Dame has 2 ranked wins. That's it. Yeah. They have 2 ranked wins, which will end up being 3 when they beat Army.
I'm trying to look at the strength of schedule. Penn State's is actually 28.
How is that even possible? That number below, like if you look at who they
their
play,
strength of record is 6, which is amazing.
Nuts. That's crazy to me. That's crazy.
Notre Dame's strength of record is 15 right now, and the strength of schedule is 74.
Yeah, 75.
Yeah, probably just depending on which strength of schedule ranking or whatever that you're looking at. But yeah,
I would love to know how they figure that out. But again, you're splitting hairs, and it's fine for now. It's fine.
Which of the teams in the initial top 12 are you most convinced will not be in the playoffs? Can I just sign you up for Penn State right now?
No, you can sign me up for IU though. I don't think they're going to end up being in when it's all said and done.
So even with 1 loss, assuming the loss is to Ohio State, you think they're out?
I do. I just
think
feel
if they play
like
a competitive game with Ohio State, they're still in.
I think what is going to happen is if they lose that game, if they lose to Ohio State, right now they're undefeated and their resume doesn't matter. Okay? Because they're undefeated in the Big Ten. That's all that matters, is that goose egg under the loss column. Once they lose, now the committee is actually going to look at who they played, and they're going to be like, that doesn't measure up, and they're going to drop them. That's what I think is going to happen.
But that could also, again, like Notre Dame is going to have a better win because of Texas A&M, but again, then you
Well, they'll
start
have
going back and
they'll
forth.
have multiple better wins than IU. They'll have Louisville, who's
Oh, I
ranked.
know.
They'll
I
have
know.
Texas A&M, who's ranked. Army won't be ranked if Notre Dame beats them because they're at 25. I mean, they'll drop out,
Yeah.
right? So they'll have 2 ranked wins, and IU will have 0. Right?
I still right now Indiana's the number 3, the third Big Ten team. I have a hard time thinking that the third Big Ten team is going to just fall out because of one loss, because of the bigger picture, like with everything that the Big Ten and the SEC are
Well, they're
trying to ensure that they're going to get for the future.
They're the 4th Big Ten team right now.
Oh, I keep forgetting about Oregon. Like I'm just right. No, that's a fair point.
I know, because Oregon's not a Big Ten team. That's
no,
why.
I know, and that's exactly it. I keep forgetting about Oregon as a Big Ten team.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
My team, I think it's going to be Alabama because I think Alabama's losing this week.
Is it at LSU?
Yes.
Okay.
And the other one is actually Tennessee as well because they still have
Yeah.
Georgia and Vanderbilt. I think it's one of those 2 teams is going to fall. That's one of those I'm most convinced. Yeah.
See,
you make a good point about it, but again, I think it depends on how competitive Indiana's game is with Ohio State.
That'll play into it.
Yeah,
that'll play into it for sure. But I mean, if IU, Tennessee, Alabama all fall out, then Notre Dame just works their way right up.
That's that much better for Notre Dame.
You know what I mean?
Exactly right.
Now, I think LSU jumps in if they beat Alabama. They'll be in the bottom third of that 12, right?
They should stay behind Notre Dame.
I think so as well. But they'll jump into the mix, and then Notre Dame will, So, again, I mean, we'll see what happens. Hopefully we get some good football games. That's the most important thing.
I agree. Fill in the blank. Mitchell Evans being named a Mackey Award semifinalist is blank. You're on mute.
Dang it. I hit it like 3 times. It's mind-blowing.
Your lips were moving. Nothing was coming out.
He's a very talented tight end, but he hasn't really done it this year. So I feel like this is more of a what do you call it? It's more of like a career award than it is
award.
Yeah.
It's kind of what it seemed like, again, like no offense because we know how good he is. He was really good last year, but like he's got 16 catches for 133 yards this season. To me, it just came completely unexpected. Good for him that he's in consideration for this. But I mean, there's obviously like no Brock Bowers or, Michael Mayers or any of those kind of guys out there in terms of the tight end world.
And that was going to be my next question to you was who else is out there? You know what I mean? So maybe I don't want to say Mitchell Evans is the bottom of the barrel. That's not what I'm saying at all, because I think he's going to be a really good tight end and he could have a great career in the NFL. I think he's a good tight end.
But look, none of us would say Mitchell Evans has had a massive impact on Notre Dame's offense this season. And that's what you would expect for a guy who's a semifinalist for one of these national awards like this.
So Mitchell Evans is benefiting from the fact that, number one, he's got a golden helmet. Number two, that the competition isn't great, right? I mean, and he's got name recognition because he was on everybody's lips before he got hurt last year. And now that he's back, he just hasn't been doing as much, right? So I would be shocked if he won it. But, hey, good on him for being a finalist.
Absolutely. Hopefully, I don't know sort of what criteria they'll be looking at. The fact he's gotten this far, though.
Can't be stats, I can't imagine.
No, it doesn't seem like it. But 9 of his 16 receptions, as Notre Dame has said, have resulted in first downs this season. They included that in his release. So
there it is.
He's moving the sticks.
The sticks. Gotta love that.
Notre Dame men's basketball opens its season tonight against Stonehill, whoever that is. Fill in the blank. This season needs to be blank for Micah Shrewsbury's team.
They need to be competitive. Okay. Like, and what I mean by competitive is I think that they've got a good chance of being like a bubble type team. Even if they don't get into the NCAA tournament, they can still make a run in the NIT. And I think that can be very beneficial to this young team and what they want to do moving forward. And there's a couple of different things that they need to do, in my opinion, to really kind of use this as a launching off point. Purcell Pavilion can't be, the launching point for every other team's seasons. Like they've got to be able to defend their home floor a little bit better this year. I think defensively,
I think that's a great starting point.
Yes.
Honestly, like at least making life tough.
Yes.
For anyone who comes in, regardless of how good they're, at least make life tough for
Citadel last year at home. Like it wasn't a scary place to play for other teams, and so they at least have to be able to defend the home floor. I think defensively they will be competitive in most of the games that they play in the ACC. I would be lying if I said I was completely well-versed in who the ACC is this year and how good everybody is. But look, if they're a 500 team in the ACC, I think that that's a good year. Maybe they could get 11-9. I think that's a pretty darn good year because I think then they're really on the bubble. So, yeah, I think a bubble team at the end of the day is what you want to be. But, yeah, they got to defend that home court, man.
TD4ND, don't let that like button hit you on your way out. Come on, let's go. Come on, crank some likes here.
I like that.
Just kidding.
That's good.
Yeah, I like what you said about the home floor. I think that is a great starting point for a team and a program that's rebuilding. They were like 7 games under 500 last year. So even if they're not 500 in the ACC, but approaching 500 in the ACC, you're better at home. You win the majority of your games at home and, make the home court, Purcell Pavilion, a tough place for anyone to come in and play. I think those are great starting points. And, look, I think the bar is simply, can you at least be in the conversation to get to the NIT this year? I think that would be because they weren't even
your bar's a little lower than
because
mine.
They were like, this is my floor, like at least be in NIT conversation and maybe even a little bit more than that, pushing toward an NCAA tournament, like bubble.
I just want to have fun going to men's games again. You know what I mean? Like
it's been a while.
At the moment,
it's going on 10 years. It feels like now.
I know that's the thing. At the moment, I prefer going to women's games. I do. I prefer going to the women's games. I think they're more exciting. I think they're easier to cheer for. Hopefully that changes this year. My daughter's going to the game tonight against Stonehill. Hopefully that's an Irish victory, obviously. And then I'm going to go next week to their next game. I think it's Monday night. So I want to see what this team has. Are they going to be able to get the crowd fired up? I know the competition and all that, but I just want games to be fun again. They just haven't been fun for the last decade. And that's a shame because they used to be a blast.
Well, look, part of the reason why, the women's games are so fun, one, they win most of the time.
Absolutely.
That helps. But why do they win? I mean, they're stocked with talent. They've literally got elite, McDonald's All-Americans out there filling the roster. And that is someplace where Micah should, we've seen with the recruiting. The recruiting is going in the right direction. So it might not, it's like, I think the roster is a little better this year, and it's just going to continue to get better over the next couple of years based on the way Shrewsbury is already recruiting right now.
Recruiting has been off the charts. It's just the only thing I hate about recruiting is you get real excited about these guys that are committing to Notre Dame or committing to whatever school that you root for, and you got to wait for them to get here.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know.
Got to wait a whole season.
Be here now? Why can't we open our prisons now?
I know, right?
Fill in the blank, Vince. TV rules analysts are blank.
It's overdone. And honestly, what I feel like having the rules analyst has allowed the color and the play-by-play guy to not know the rules. And
that's a great point, because like it used to be the analyst, like the actual game analyst, knew the rules, knew his stuff inside and out, and he was the one explaining it to you. But it's like, I don't have to worry about that now because we've got this crutch of this other guy who we can bring in at any time.
Yes, I don't like that at all. I want my guys to do a little bit more homework and know the rules. It's too often that I've seen recently that the guys that are calling the games, they don't know the rules. You know,
but the problem is, do the rules analysts even know the rules?
Well,
Because, like, I don't know if you saw any of my tweets over the last couple of weeks, but like Mike Pereira on Fox in that Penn State Ohio State game was brutal on that whole was it a catch? And he's like, well, then like Gus asks him, to explain what exactly the technical definition of a catch is, and he's like, well, I don't even know if I can, I don't even know if I know the definition.
Like, I know it when I see it.
Yeah. And then he talks in this complete word salad about, and like none of these guys actually come out and, by and large, I'd say 99% of the time, they don't go against what they're seeing on the screen. Because, like, do you remember Mike Carey a few years back? I think he was with CBS. Like, he would actually come on. You probably don't remember him because he would come on, they would bring him in, and then he was always wrong. Like he would give this big explanation, and he was always wrong about what he said. And finally, they're like, well, we can't have this anymore. So they got rid of Mike Carey, and it just feels like they've completely overcorrected the other way. And now none of these guys actually say anything. They don't disagree with anything you say. As a viewer who knows anything about football, like, you already know most of the time, like what's going on. And then the actual thing that you do need explained, it's like they're not there. So, like, to me, do you remember in Friends, Chandler Bing, his superfluous third nipple? Like, that's what the TV analyst is to me. They're Chandler Bing's superfluous third nipple, completely useless. That's what the TV analyst is.
Wow, you went all the way there. I'm with you. I feel oftentimes that I know more than what the people on the TV know. And that's a freaking shame, man. Like, I should not know more than what the people are getting paid to tell me about the game. And that happens way more often than it should.
Like you said, it's like the littlest things. It's like, well, what are we looking for here? Did it break the plane? Well, show me the freaking replay. We can all tell if it broke the plane. It's really all, like, was the knee down? Come on.
And the analyst can tell you, like, the rules guy just comes in to confirm like what the guys were already saying.
That's all it is.
Not necessary. It's not necessary. I feel like they are also, for the most part, those rules analysts, they're there to kind of defend the refs an awful lot. And I don't think that, because they used to be refs. They know all those guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they don't want to.
Because, like, when they first started this, it felt like a good idea. It's like, oh, you've got all these experienced refs, and now they're going to explain rules to us on TV. But, like you said, I think it's done a couple of things. All they're doing is defending the call on the field. Yep. And then the other side of it is the actual game analysts, the Herb Streets and, whoever's of the world, like, don't seem like they're as up on the rules as they used to be back in the day. Superfluous. So, Vince, there's a guy online who's offering to let other guys beat him up so they can prove to their girlfriends they're not wimps for the low price of $50 on weekdays or $60 on the weekend. You can get a hold of this guy, set up a location, and he'll come by and harass your significant other. And then, as he puts it, bam, you can show up, save the day, and rock this guy's world. $50 on weekdays, $60 on the weekend. How much would you need to get your butt kicked on the regular by this guy?
Way more than $50. Are you kidding me? Like, that is so, at least his time is a little bit more valuable on the weekends, apparently. But holy cow. What?
I just like that. That is painful because we're not even talking boxing gloves. We're talking bare knuckles, man.
Like, are we talking like I'm going to get punched in the face multiple times, or can I fake like just taking it in the gut, and then just going down? Like, I just don't think that this can handle getting beat up all the time. This
is the ballpark I'm in, DJ. Yeah. Like 250 is my floor.
And it might be a one-time deal. It might be a one-time offer. Like,
because you're going to be puffed up. You're going to have some cuts. Yeah. Like, that's going to hurt for a while.
Look, last time I checked, Sean, and I could be wrong, it's like $250 to walk into the emergency room with insurance.
Right.
Okay?
That's a good point. point.
Like, it doesn't even cover the visit. Maybe I just have bad insurance. I don't know. But it's ridiculously expensive to go to the emergency room. So if you're not even going to pay me to cover my medical expenses, this is not going to work out.
Yeah. This is not a good business plan. Like,
No.
because if you're out there and you're like doing this, okay, like if you're doing it, let's say 5 days a week, you're doing it 4 times during the week. That's what, $200. And then you do it on the weekend. That's $260 to get your butt whooped 5 times.
That's nuts. I mean,
No.
if he wants to make any money doing this, he needs to be doing this multiple times a day.
Exactly.
I mean, he's gonna look like a drunk just walking around with like
I know. His lips gonna be out to here, his eyes gonna be all swollen up. He's gonna look like Rocky.
I'm gonna need to see some video evidence of this guy just taking it every time, and then getting paid $25 or $50. Like, here's your $50 bill.
That's a good point. I need to see if we can find this guy on social media.
Yes.
See if he's got any pictures of himself.
We may have to have him on for an interview.
It is way too low. It is way too low, though. There's
Yes.
just no way.
I just want
No
to
way.
tell him that. I just want to tell him like, dude, you're worth
underselling yourself.
Yes.
You're undervaluing your services.
I love where his head's at as far as trying to make other people, he's trying to raise up other people. Good on him. But dude, you need to have more faith in yourself.
Don't sell yourself short.
That's right.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. We're going to wrap it up with that. A lot of great questions. Of course, I figured we'd get some good playoff questions in the mailbag tonight, and we did. Didn't disappoint. Don't forget, we've got the We In, We Out show coming up tomorrow. I've got to get over to the good old Champions Lounge and get that thread posted. So get your questions in there for tomorrow's show. We In, We Out. We'll also have some more from Marcus Freeman on tomorrow's show from his Thursday Zoom call as well. Hit the like button. Appreciate you as always, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.